For this tutorial on advanced triggers, we're just going to take a look at all the triggers available to you. If we click on the new trigger icon, we can see the action that we can add for a trigger. Now, we're going to go through all the actions. We can change the state of, so this would change, let's say perhaps if you have a button and you click on one button, you can force it to change the state of another button. So for selected, for example, so if you have a number of buttons, click on one and this can change the state of another button, or it can change the state of perhaps a picture or anything you want. We have the show layer, which we've already covered, and hide layer, which we have already covered. We can have it jump to a slide, so you could give an option that two buttons, let's say you could have a slide, let's say in this example of a slide of front crawl and a slide of backstroke, and if they click on the front crawl button you would jump to a slide for front crawl, or the backstroke button they would jump to a slide for backstroke. Jump to scene is similar. Scenes are what we see out here in the story view. You can see we have one scene, but if you had added extra ones up here, you could jump to these other ones through that trigger. Similarly, a lightbox slide. A lightbox slide is a slide we can make appear within a slide as an external window. Or we can have a button that closes the lightbox slide, which isn't needed that much because you can have the lightbox slide itself allows itself to be closed. We have a move one as well. We can also use this trigger to affect media. We can make it play media. If we had an MP3 or a video or an AVI attached to this slide, we could have it play that media. We could have it pause it or stop it. These are quite useful if you have audio on your slide and you plan to pause it or stop it if the user clicks on something to view a layer, and they can restart again. You can have one to restart the entire unit again, the course, or to exit the course. So instead of having the person at the very end of your unit having to click the X to close out of it, you could have them click on a button to either exit or restart the whole thing again. The next ones are a little bit complicated. They move this up so you can see them all. We can adjust variables, and these are conditions where we could have there was part of this part or this piece where we could create conditions. So we could create a variable to be 1, and if a certain thing is selected or made, that variable can change to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. So if the variable, these ones can change the variables. And you can have another trigger elsewhere that, let's say every time you click on a button you're going to increase the variable by 1, and you can have a trigger elsewhere in the slide so that if that variable hits 5 something will happen. So that means somebody has clicked a button 5 times, you can have the variable set something off to say sorry, you can't click this anymore. We can have it pause the timeline, so as before, if you had animations going on, if you had MP3s going on and somebody clicked on the button to show them a layer, you could pause everything so that when they close the layer and go back it'll resume the timeline. That's where this one comes from. We can resume timeline. We can jump to a URL or a file, so you could have a button that links out to, let's say in our case we could have a button that links out to the FINA, F-I-N-A website. You can hide it behind that. We can use it to send emails, to execute JavaScript if you'd created some. We can put triggers for in terms of quizzes for submission. So instead of having the usual submit button at the very bottom of a quiz, we could add a button that'll submit it for us, or skip ahead to the next slide. We can submit results, review results, reset them, or print. Next up, the second element is dependent on the first. So in this case we're going to jump to slide, so we'd have to select which slide we'd want to jump to if we wanted a button or something to jump. If we'd selected a light box, we'd have to choose which slide we want to make the light box, or if we wanted to give it navigation controls. The most common ones we'll be using, even state of layer, we have to choose what object we want the state to change on. So if we chose on the front backstroke button to change the front crawl button state, we'd click on backstroke, we'd change it to down when user clicks something. We say the backstroke button, you can change it itself, that's built in, or you could change the state to be disabled if someone clicks on front crawl. Same with the media. If you choose to play media, stop or pause media, you'd have to select what media you're going to apply this to. Same with jump to URL, you'd have to enter in a file on your computer you want to open up, which will then be attached, or you can choose a website you want to change it. And all of these. Now when you choose an action you want to make, let's say we'll go show a layer, I will click backstroke layer, you have to choose when this trigger is going to go off. So in this case it's when a user clicks something, we can choose they click, we can choose whenever the timeline ends, that's when our trigger is going to go off, when it starts, when it finishes, when it reaches a certain point. You can even have your timeline change so that, let's say 5 seconds in, 10 seconds in, here we have a time, or you can make on your timeline, if you had a cue point on your timeline, make a cue point, so there's 2 there, so we could have a trigger, jump to slide, when timeline reaches, and we could have a cue point in first, second cue point, and have it do that way. So all these variables are interchangeable, or like I said, the extra pieces are dependent on the first one. So you're normally telling it an action, what you want the action to do, when you want the action to do. You can do it when an object is dragged, when the user presses a key. If its state changes on one object, something else can happen to another one. So if the state changes on one button, something else can happen somewhere else. A picture could be revealed, a mouse hover over has an action, and so on. So we'll do a very basic one here. We'll jump to slide when user clicks on. And we can even change the next and previous buttons. We can skip slides in the middle, backstroke. There's our conditions. If we had variables involved, we'd put them in here, and that's it.